and ACH, which we in India we use NEFT, right? Similar to that, it is called generic wires. The type of the RTGS payments are called generic wires payments, generic wires ISO payments. And the ACH is for clearing module, like which will have multiple messages in the same, I mean, multiple transactions in the same message. So when there is a bulk clearing process, ACH module comes in. And SEPA payments, which are faster payments, also called as faster payments, which is mostly used in Europe and in some other banks as well. Like for example, in one of our banks in Cambodia, we have this faster payments, which is called it's SEPA, but we use it we use this module to with some customizations to support the QR payments and instant payments. It's called it's instant payment actually. And MT international payments. MT is Swift format. So earlier, the design, I mean, Oracle released the changes to support both MT and MX in one screen, but later it evolved and it got separated. So MT format is a plain text format, and MX is a ISO 222 format. MT is going to be decommissioned by November 2025
Yeah,
by
yeah,
Swift.
Prashad. Before that, see, there are basically two type of payments. One is domestic payments and cross-border payment. Cross-border payment is what Prasad is saying now. It uses previously we used to have a empty message format, which is controlled by an organization called Swift. Okay, Swift is the organization which controls the or which manages the network for cross-border transaction. Okay, and then there is a local payments which is managed by this own individual countries. Like India has IMPS, UPI, all those things, and the same way we have uh, in London they have a different format, and then US they have a different format. I'm not able to right now recollect what are the formats. But each and Europe Union they form together, and then they treat it as a though it's a different countries, but still Europe Union they form together, and they, even within not only Europe, you can transfer like any other country. It's kind of a local payments. They manage it within the countries which is part of the European Union. So each countries has their own payment network which is called local payments, and then the cross border is managed by the Swift. Okay, so that is the foundation. And then in the with the payments, there are three types of payments. One is payment transaction, which comes is uh, incoming payment. The incoming payment is which is coming, let's say let's say HDFC bank is deployed FlexCube, and whatever, and you have an account in HDFC, and the payment comes to you, which is a incoming payment. Outgoing payment is the account from your account or from the HDFC or the system where we are using, and we are triggering a transaction to someone else, to a different bank. Okay, so it can be a international or it can be a local payment. Let's say HDFC to ICICI, it's going to be a outgoing payment. Okay, and then there is something called book transfer. Book transfer is nothing but you have a person A has an account in HDFC and the person B has a account in the HDFC. So this within the same bank, which is called a book transfer. Okay, or internal transfer. So whatever it is. So these are the main three type of transaction within payment, and then uh, the categories, one is cross border and then the local payment. So this is how the payment starts. Okay, uh, and whatever Prasad say, please know, he this is the general term of payments which I have told you. Prasad will say what is there in the flexi, which is more important, and keep whatever he says. Please take a note aside, and so that maybe we will have an interview tomorrow. So in that time, these hints will be useful for you. Sorry, Prasad. Please go ahead.
No. So as I said, like book transfer is if the account belongs to same bank, which is it's called internal, meaning both accounts existing in the same bank. Okay, or it can be some GL to account as well. But probably it is used for um, internal fund transfer within the bank. And RTGS ACH, it goes through clearing network. Okay, there will be a network like NEFT or RTGS or IMPS, whatever it is, or UPI. And how it works is there will be a gateway system which will be provided by the central bank, and the banks which are in the network will communicate with each other via the gateway. Now HDFC sends a customer in HDFC sends a fund transfer of, for example, 1000 INR to a account in SBI. It the transaction will be initiated from mobile banking or internet banking of HDFC, and it, for example, HDFC is using OBPM, and the transaction is booked in RTGS generic wires or ACH module, and it generates a message called ISO 222. It can be PAX message or it can be a pain message. Pain message is nothing but payment initiation message, which is of type 001, or it can be PAX 008. So I'll write it down as well. If it is pain, it will be 001. If it is PAX, it will be 008. Depending on the central bank's system, either of it will be supported. Like whatever is the requirement, I mean, OBP is capable of generating both ISO messages. So PAX 008 is nothing but an equivalent of MT103, which is fund transfer between two customers of two financial institutions. Similarly, pain message as well. Pain is payment initiation, and PAX is payment and clearing system. Okay, and SEPA as well will generate a message similar to this. PAX are pain. Normally, it will be pain. Yes, normally it will be pain message here. And here for cross-border payments, it will again be PAC 008 as per international standard, SWIFT standard. Actually, this domestic payments depends on the regulator. Like the central bank will fix the specifications that this parameter should be there, like the debitor name should be there, the debitor address should be there, the creditor name and address should be there, and for example, the remittance information is mandatory. Some guidelines will be given and it will be modified based on the central bank's guideline. But the Swift MT and MX messages are not regulated by any central government or any reserve bank or central bank of a country. It is regulated by Swift. There is a standard and it should be followed across all banks uh, around the world. So now as the MT payments are going to be soon decommissioned. How is it working now is any bank who is still using MT, they are using a converter. A transaction is booked in cross-border screen, which generates a MT message. And at Swift side, Swift by default, they provided a translator, which will convert the MT to an MX format and sends to the receiving bank. And the receiving bank will in turn have a converter to convert that MX to MT. So still there is some way to handle the MT to MX message conversion by banks. But soon in November 2022, there is a guideline by SWIFT that this is soon going to be decommissioned and there won't be any converter as well to use. So that's where this MX international payments comes in, which is which as well comes under generic ISO module of OBP. This RTGS and MX both comes together under generic wires. It is called generic wires, and both comes under the same module. Okay, so these are the type of payments which normally every bank use. Okay, now let's go into how OBPM works for these transactions. Okay, whatever the transaction type is, how OBPM works. I will explain you the flow. Okay, and then we will start from there.
Hi everyone. If you feel like if any of the term is not understandable, or if it is going little fast, like you just ask, because anyways we are preparing this for interview. You can stop at any moment and then you can ask if it is
Yeah.
not clear.
Yeah, and also just please take this serious. So Prasad is putting his time, so he don't want to do that, but because since we requested him, and then he is spending time with us, so just please make you are clear and then make useful of this session. Thank you.
Sure, sir.
Hello,
Uh,
hi, Tambi Jayaprakash here. Can we record this session?
No, no, Jay Prakash, we will not able to record it because Prakash is sorry, Prasad is trying to help us, and then maybe that's why you take notes, and then if you have any doubts, you just stop there, and then we will clarify the doubts, and then we'll proceed. Okay.
yeah. Okay. Can I continue? Uh,
Yeah, please, Prasad, please go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So in OBPM, this screen called
Prasad,
PBDOTONL.
you just make this a little bigger, no? Like it is small,
Okay, okay.
Just increase the percentage. Yeah,
Better now?
thanks.
and this is
Yeah,
fine now.
but
Yeah. So the screen for inputting the internal payment, which is called book transfer, is the screen name is PBDOTONL. And normally, in FlexCube, it works like immediate basis. Like in FT, for example, when you input a transaction, save and authorize, it is done. Accounting is passed. Message, if there is any Swift message in that payment, it will automatically generate, and that's the end of the payment. Actually, the cycle end of the cycle of the payment. But in OBPM, it is not like that. For booking a transaction, it is via one screen, and then to know the status of the transaction, there is one more screen, which is called view screen. For booking, it is online screen, which is detail screen. And then to view your transaction, to view the status of your transaction that you booked, there is another screen called view screen for all modules. Whatever we saw the type of payments for all the modules, the functionality is similar. The booking is one screen. To know the payment status and other details of the transaction, we have to go to the view screen. That's where the queue processing and other things comes in, and then the final status of the transaction as well shown. Okay, so let's start with book transfer. The transaction is input in PBDOTONL, and then the transaction, whatever is booked, it will just say you like saved and authorized. Our transaction is submitted for processing, and then to know the status, we have to go and check in PBS overview. Okay, and if the status is Q, there are two things which determines the transaction status, which is Q code and transaction status. This two fields is common across all payments. Whatever the transaction screen is, it is common across all payments. So if Q code is hash and transaction status is processed, it means the transaction is completed successfully. There is no more further action on the payment is required. Okay. And then there are multiple queues in OBPM. All transactions which are initiated in OBPM go through queues. You submit the transaction, it will go to ECA queue first, meaning external credit approval queue. What it means is it will go and check the debit account's balance. If the debit account have insufficient funds, then the transaction will directly rejected in the ECA queue. Okay, and then there is another queue called EAC queue, which means
1 second, Prasad.
yeah,
Sorry to interrupt. In this case, when any transaction is booked in the Oracle Banking Payments (OBPM) product, in when we are doing that, it will not, as he mentioned, like it is not going to be a straightforward thing. You just save and authorize. The transaction is successfully posted. Here, what it happens is the Oracle Banking Payments does not have customer account balances and all. It won't be available as part of the Oracle Banking Payments. That is still it will be, it has to look into the other product, the product for the casa product. Here it is Oracle Flex Cube. From Oracle Banking Payments, whenever the transaction is booked, it has to connect with the Oracle Flex Cube for checking the balance and then blocking the balance and then putting accounting entries. All that will happen as part of the Oracle Flex Cube. It will not happen as part of the Oracle Banking Payments. Oracle Banking Payments will book the payments. It will have the entries like where exactly the payments lies, which queue it is lies, and then it will have it own accounting entries. But the actual debit happens to the account, and then the credit, all that will be available as part of the core banking product Oracle Flex Cube. So in this case, like this ECAQ, the first one, when you are booking a transaction, it calls the ECAQ. ECAQ is nothing but it books the transaction and then it places the transaction in the ECAQ. From there, the call will be made to the Oracle FlexCube. Okay, the FlexCube or any other CASA product. If a FlexCube is not available, if the bank is using different core banking system for CASA, that will be called. There you will have do the account check, balance check, account balance check, whether the account is not dormant. It is not dormant. All those validations it will do for that account, and then finally it will do the, if it is a debit record, there are possibility that the book transfer can be this one, like when it is coming as debit, it goes to the ECA and then it will check the balance is there in the account, and then it blocks the amount. It blocks the amount how much ever it has to debit. It blocks the amount in the flex queue, and then it will revert back to the ECAQ. It will respond success from FlexCube, will respond success to the payments product. Okay. So once after that is success, okay, then it will move on to the next queue. Prasad, you can proceed. Hope this is clear as of now.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Sorry,
Oh,
Moto, what is that?
y- yeah, yeah. It's co-deployment. Everything go via the same logic, Anand
Whatever
sir.
it is, it goes via, because it treats as a different products only.
Um, Actually, this
Even though
EAC,
it is a core deployment, it will treat as a different products.
yeah. Normally this ECA check, okay, it depends on your account maintenance. If at account level, I will show you an example. Okay, you're able to see my screen. Hello.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the ECA check you said, right? So it depends on this is external account maintenance normally. Okay. Okay, I'll just launch the screen without data. Okay. Here you see the flag called external credit approval required, right? If this if
Yeah.
this if this field is enabled, it means it will go to the ECAQ. If this flag is disabled, it won't go to ECAQ. It will directly go to accounting queue because there is no check required on the account. Okay, depends. For example, when this flag should be disabled is for accounts like Nostro accounts. For this check is not required because Nostro accounts can go as much as negative with negative balance. Normally, the Nostro accounts, if you see, which are banks accounts, will normally be in negative balance. So for those type of accounts, this ECA check is not required. Okay. Okay, I will tell you about the screen as well. This is when you create a customer and account in FlexCube FCC. There is a process which replicates the SIF and account to OBP. It is automatic process, but still you can maintain this manually as well in this screen. Normally,
So as
FlexCube,
I mentioned, these two are Oracle FlexCube and Oracle Banking Payments are two different products. So Oracle FlexCube is what handling the customer accounts, accountings, all that. So when you create an account in Oracle FlexCube, and using the Oracle banking payments for doing a payment, you will not be able to know what are all the accounts listed. So that is when this option is created in the common core. That is, there is one more uh, uh, process called common core will be there in common core, which will be sync, which has to be in sync between Oracle Flex Cube and the Oracle banking payment. So what will happen is, if at all, if you create a customer account in the Oracle Flex Cube or customer in the Oracle Flex Cube, so that will get replicated to the common core. So the common core is what referred by the Oracle banking payments for booking any transaction. So it will pick up the accounts, or it will pick up the customers from the common core details. So this is the common core details. You see, usually in FlexCube, you will have STD Kazakh screen, CU SAC. That is the customer account screen. Whereas in the common core, the same thing, but it will not have all the details of whatever it is there in the STD customer account screen in the FlexCube. It will have the only the minimum details which are required for the other products to use. So this product, whether it can be OBPM or it can be OBCL, any other product processors, everything uses this common core as the detail for them to use. So they will have the minimum details replicated to the common core. So all the common core screens, it will come as STDCR, and this is the customer account screen and customer creation screen. All that will get replicated to the common core. So from this table, the Oracle banking payments will refer the account details and the customer details. Yes, Prasad.
Yeah. So, so this queues depends on how the maintenances are there. Okay. Normally, the other queues which are in blue mostly will not be used unless there is some specific requirement. Okay, I'll give you an example. External pricing queue. What it means is it's a queue. Um, for example, your charges for a transaction is maintained in some other system. So, for example, I will give you a case. Your charges for a transaction, you want to refer from FCC, not OBP. Normally, the charges as well is maintained in OBP, but there is a possibility that you can maintain charges in FCC. So, for that, if you enable the external pricing in OBPM, so it will refer the external system, which is FCC in this case, and it will go through external pricing queue. And exchange rate queue as well, similar to that. Sanction queue, mostly it is not used. Authorization limit queue is nothing but when your transaction is exceeding a limit and it should go to authorization queue, it will go. And there is a process cutoff queue as well. But these which are in blue normally are not used. Okay, the other which are in green now will go through. For example, the first queue it goes is ECA queue for debit account,
One
EAC queue
second,
for
Prasad.
credit account.
So
Yeah.
whatever it is there in the left hand side, all the queues, like whether it is in blue or whether it is in green, that is the feasibility or the options available as part of the Oracle banking payments. So it is up to the bank's management, like how business requirement, how they wanted it, they will use these features. So most of the banks, like so as why it is in blue, like most of the banks doesn't use that features, though it is available. So that's what he is meaning, like but if the banks want it, and since the option is also available, the feature is also available as part of the Oracle banking payments, it very much we have to support it for the bank. That is one thing. And the authorization limit, the processing cutoff and sanctions check, it's mostly not used. But so let us focus on the green one, because that is widely used everywhere. Like that is the reason, like we are more focusing on the green ones. The blue ones we can delete later. If we have any doubts or something, like then we can discuss that part separately. But with the major ones we need to know is that is what given in green color, and we will go through that first.
Yeah. So the first queue it hits is this one, ECA queue, which is for the debit account. What this queue does is your debit account should be a valid account. It should not be dormant. It should not have no debit flag, or it should not be frozen. So such parameters will be checked along with the debit balance. If the account does not have sufficient balance in the account for the transaction amount you initiate, the transaction will go as cancel, will get marked as cancel. Okay. That is the purpose of ECAQ. Then it goes to EACQ. What is EACQ? It is a check on the credit account, similar to how the debit account is checked. The credit account have to be checked as well, right? For an account that is belonging to the transaction. So the credit account check is nothing but, for example, the credit account is marked for no credits. So in that case, or the credit account is already closed, but somehow the status of the account is not updated or some reason. So that scenario, it will go and check in EACQ, and if that account is marked for no credit, and the transaction will get rejected from the EACQ. The first queue is ECAQ, the next queue is EACQ, then it goes to accounting queue.
So one second, Prasad. So this is like see, we call this external credit approvals. In short form, we call it as ECA, and external account check we call it as EAC. And there is one more thing, which is EA, external accounting. These are the things which is very much used for the accounting purpose. So whenever you put a transaction, there will be debit and then credit. Whenever the for the debit, it calls the ECA, because it is going to be a, debit transaction. We are going to block that amount before even putting that amount as a transaction. We are going to block that amount from the customer, because it is following the queue process. The queue process is nothing but it is not synchronous. It will be like, it can be synchronous as well as it can be asynchronous as well. Since we are giving an option for asynchronous, what it means is I will just block the amount initially first moment, and then after some time I will call the accounting purpose, which means like the amount is already blocked, and finally I will call the accounting to put an post an accounting entries. So for that purpose it is given as a queue. In this case, the first one, whenever the debit transaction comes, we will call the ECA, external credit approval, where it will go, it will check for the validity, validations of that account. Like as he mentioned, like it should not be dormant, it should not be frozen, it should not be marked for no debit. So all that validations it will do, and finally it will check the balance and it will block the amount. If it is a credit transaction, if the credit transaction is coming, in that case ECA will not happen. For that it will call the EAC, external account check. What external account check will do, it will check only with the validation of that account, whether that account exists, whether that account is not dormant, not frozen, all that validation, where that account is not marked for no credit, which means like some of the cases, like if there is no credit marked for that account and we are trying to credit that account, then it should not allow. So those kind of validations alone will be done in the external account check, and then finally it will be responded back to the Oracle banking payments. Hope it is clear.
Yes, sir.
Prasad, you proceed. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this I will show you an example. Show you examples also how it works. But let me explain what is and after this ECA and EAC check, it goes to accounting queue. Accounting queue is nothing but, in OBP the accounting should be passed, right, for the transaction that you are booking, debit and credit. So it will go to accounting queue, and for every queue there is a request and response actually. So the request and response goes to, if it is in co-deployed environment, it is in the same environment, right? So the request goes to particular queue, and then come the if it is flex queue, it comes, the response will come from flex queue. So the accounting queue is nothing but, there is a there is a interface, I mean web service, if external accounting in OBP, sorry, in FCC, which will be called by OBP. So the accounting queue does that. The accounting queue builds the request XML of the accounting, and then pushes it to flex queue, and once the accounting is processed, the response will come and the transaction will get completed at this point. Once the accounting queue is successful, it means the accounting is passed. That is the end of the transaction, and the transaction will be marked as hash and processed. Okay. And the process exception queue is similarly some, if for example we are booking the transaction and the big code, for example, if it is an international payment, the big code doesn't exist, or we don't, the bank doesn't have any relationship with the big code that is input. So at that particular time, this process exception will queue will come in, and then we need to, there is an option for all these queues. If the transaction is in process exception queue, there is an option for the back office user to go to this queue and remediate the inputs that are given and then reprocess from this queue. As said, the big code, for example, the big code does not have a relationship maintenance with, for example, SBI Bank. To transfer to SBI Bank, there should be a relationship, right, with HDFC. In that case, if there is no relation, the transaction will go to process exception queue, saying that there is no, the big code input doesn't have any relationship maintenance. So it will show the error, and back office user can go and first maintain that relationship, and then they can retry or reprocess from this process exception queue, and it will continue to flow in, and then again it will come to accounting queue and finally complete the transaction. Similarly, it will go to ECA queue, EAC queue, and then accounting queue, and then the transaction will be completed. Or else the transaction can be cancelled as well from the process exception queue. Okay, I'll launch the screen. So from the queues, you can do multiple actions, which is one of it is retry, cancel, authorize, or you can even delete the transaction. Cancel is nothing but you are removing the transaction, or I mean you are not proceeding with the transaction further. So it depends on back office users what to do for the with the transactions that are stuck in the queues. Okay. And network cutoff queue. Network cutoff queue is nothing but if you are working in a domestic network or international network, which means, for example, for us, let's consider RTGS or
Yes, sir.
NEFT
Jayaprakash,
or
yes, sir. Jayaprakash, this process exception queue, whether this will come before accounting queue? Whether
yes, yes,
this
yes.
before.
Accounting queue will be the last one. Accounting queue will be the last one always.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So the network cutoff queue, for example, let's take RTGS or NEFT or any other network which have a network cutoff. For example, earlier, now NEFT is 24 by, I mean, all time it runs and all days it runs, right? But earlier it won't run on weekend. NEFT earlier won't run on weekend, and there is some cutoff time as well. Earlier in India, the NEFT payments have some cutoff time, 4 or 5 p.m. So the transactions which are initiated after 5 p.m., for example, we have cutoff time for a network, say at 5 p.m. The network have a cutoff. For example, NEFT network have a cutoff at 5 p.m. So the transactions that are initiated after 5 p.m. will go and sit in this queue, network cutoff queue. Okay. Meaning we are holding the transaction. We are not pushing the transaction and proceeding with accounting and all, but we are just holding the transaction by blocking the amount, just keeping it in the queue. The amount on the debit account is blocked in the ECA queue. For example, the ECA queue will hit, but it won't proceed with accounting and other things, even the message generation and all, but it will just go and sit in network cutoff queue. And then there is a job which runs. I will explain you the jobs as well. There is a job to release the transaction from network cutoff queue after the date change, and then proceed with the transaction, and then hand off the message to the gateway. For example, here in our case it is NEFT, so the message will be handed off the next day to NEFT network. So that is called a network cutoff queue. This parameter is available in the network maintenance. I will show in upcoming maintenance document. Okay. And future warehouse queue, sorry, warehouse queue. It is called warehouse queue here, but literally it means a future value dated transaction. For example, we can initiate a transaction in for future date. For example, you want to schedule a payment. It's called a schedule payment. So you can schedule your payment for future. So that those type of transaction will go and sit in future queue or warehouse queue. How a transaction will be determined as to be there in future queue is based on your activation date of the transaction. So example, so here booking date, instruction date, and activation date are there, right? Normally in OBPM, the date is real date. FlexCube date can be any date. Okay, FlexCube normally for all banks, if normally for all banks, normally Saturday and Sunday is holiday. Okay, but in OBPM, the OBPM date is, it depends on the maintenance. Okay, it can be a real date or it can be FlexCube date, but mostly since it's a payment, normally you should pick up the real time date. For example, today is Sunday, right? So here, for example, is showing 2nd July 2025. But if I initiate any transaction, okay, you see the date is derived as today's date. Even though the branch date is very old, 2nd July, the dates are derived as today's date because OBPM acts in real time. So that's why it won't care about holidays of FlexCube. It is always real time. Even if you initiate a transaction on Saturday, it will be Saturday date. It will, if you initiate transaction on Sunday, it will be Sunday date, or any holiday. For example, there is a public holiday. Even on that day, based on the real time date, the OBP will book the transaction. Now, for example, I give date as 16. So your booking date is today, and your instruction date is in future. So you should not process today, but we should be able to book the transaction and hold it. So it will go on, once you book this transaction with instruction data 16 July, it will move to future queue. Okay. That is what the future queue is. And there is a job which runs and releases the transaction on the particular day. For example, here we input the instruction data 16th, right? So there is a background job I will show you in upcoming maintenance where we maintain the job, and it will pick up such transactions each day. Instruction date is less than or equal to today's date, and it will pick up this transaction on 16th and then release the transaction from the future queue. That is called warehouse queue here. And non-STP queue. Okay, non-STP queue is nothing but non-straight through process queue, which means in FlexCube module there is a concept that you can hold the transaction. Okay, meaning you can determine what the status of the transaction should be. For it is available in source preference. I'll show. So, for example, let's take FT here. Okay, let's take this one, which is already there to put on hold. So you can determine what the system is. For example, here is your external system, say mobile banking. Okay, and you can determine if a transaction comes in mobile banking for this module. You can put the status, post upload status as put on hold, meaning it will go and sit in hold queue. It won't process. It is just hold. The transaction will come in, but it will sit in hold. Okay, this is in flex queue, but in OBPM there is no hold concept. Okay, there is a maintenance called non-STPA rule maintenance. So it will, for that, if the transaction or source code, or if the transaction belonging to a network falls under the rule, it will go into non-STP queue. I will show you how the rule is maintained. For example, let's take this network, this source code. Okay. So what it means is, if the transaction is booked for this source code and the channel type is SPS out, I will explain explain at the last what is SPS. And the rule is nothing but the transfer amount is greater than 0 for this source code. All these transactions should go and sit in non-STP queue. That is the rule. So when you initiate any transaction with this source code, it will go into non-STP queue. Okay, which is equivalent to the hold concept in FlexCube. Okay, we are putting this into some place where the back office can go and then take action. I will give you an example. we are booking an FCY transaction. For example, I'm booking USD to INR transaction. OBP picks up some rate, but back office always should have some validation to be done, and then they have to. I mean, bank want always to give some special rate on or verify that rate that is given or picked up by OBPM, and then only after validation by both the supervisor or manager, the transaction should go to the final stage if in case the exchange rate is available. So in this case, I can give the source code and then the transfer amount greater than 0, and then it will go to non-STPQ, and then user can validate the exchange rate and then release the transaction from non-STPQ. Again, if the transaction goes to non-STPQ, I will show some example how it works.
In this, the function ID, P stands for payments and B stands for book transfer, and the third character as every other FlexCube functionality. If it is D, it is detailed screen, and S, it is for summary screen. And O stands for whether it is an outgoing transaction or if it is incoming transaction. There are two kind of transaction. Either it can be outgoing from the bank to the outside bank, or it can be incoming. So in that case, so it will be O for outgoing and I for incoming. So it is view screen. It's for like outgoing view screen. It is a summary screen. We are using it. If it is incoming summary screen where we need to see, it will be PBS I view.
Normally for book transfer, there is no incoming because it's internal, right?
Incoming, correct.
So
Because
there is
it is going to
no,
be internal, the bank's internal transaction.
yeah. Only for domestic and international payments, you will have both outgoing and incoming screens. For internal payments, it's only outgoing. Okay. Okay. So this, as I told, the booking will be done in front end. Okay. But actually, these transactions came from network code e-banking, meaning mobile banking. So you can't find these transactions in the book screen. Okay, I will show. VDOTONL. As I told, OTONL is the book screen. Okay. O view is the final screen where you go and check the status of the transaction. You see, you can't see anything except the details of the transaction. You can see what is the source, what is the network, and what is the debit account, what is the transaction amount. Only these details will be available. Whatever is input during the transaction is booked. But you can't find the final fate of the transaction. Okay, so for that, we need to go to the view screen, which is this. Okay, so if you see here, you will know the status. Transaction status is an exception. Debit liquidation and credit liquidation is pending. And accounting handoff status is blank. And the queue is in non-STPQ. Okay, now let's see how we can release the transaction from non-STPQ. There is a view queue button in all the screens. There will be a view queue button. This is book transfer, right? Similarly, in generic wires or international payments, there is a view queue button, but the screen is different. Okay, I will show the screens as well. You have to select the transaction. Okay, there are two options. Either you can release directly or you can modify the transaction. As I said, um, in some cases we need to modify the exchange rate. So in that kind of scenarios, we click on modify the exchange rate or some details of the transaction and proceed with. Otherwise, if you just release, it will release whatever the transaction came in however with the however data, it will just release the transaction with the details that came into system. Okay, and then as usual, it needs to be authorized from the queue to reach the final status. Okay, this is like the queue concept is same. This is non-STP queue, and you have the actions specific to this queue. Similarly, in the other queues, there will be some specific actions, and you can proceed with. Normally, for any transaction taken, the final status of the transaction should be hash hash. Otherwise, the transaction is having some issue, and that needs to be resolved from the queues. Okay. Yeah, non-STP queue is this. Okay. Now let's go back to uh, this with queue code hashes and transaction status process means it reached the final status and no action is pending on the transaction, and the transaction life cycle ends there. But if in such cases where the transaction is in exception or future value or is in progress, then the user can do two things. One, they can cancel, or they can release, I mean, modify the data in the queues, or they can take some necessary action and then release the transaction from the respective queues. For example, as I said, process exception queue or network cutoff queue. From network cutoff queue, user can release manually, and similarly non-STP queue as well, as is shown, it can be released. It till then the transaction will be shown as in exception, okay, as we seen here. Sorry. Normally the job does that from the cutoff. You are saying, for example, you are saying from the queue, right? From the queue to release in bulk, right? Like this, view queue. Normally, if there are 100 records here, you select all and click on release. That's what you are saying, right? Okay. For now, it is not there, but I think there is a development activity ongoing at Oracle side. They are working on it, I think, but I'm not sure on what is the. I mean, we raised it already, so we are for. I
Sir,
mean, they told.
can't this queue screen be opened separately and query so that we will get all the queue reference number? Is
Yes,
that not possible?
yes, possible, possible. Like we can launch the screen and we can just query,
So
and
in that
it
case,
is.
you can select all and you can click on release, right?
No,
Instead
no,
of
it
doing
won't.
single.
No, no, it won't work. Uh, Normally, they told it will. It is going to come in, but for now, I'm not 100% sure. Okay, it looks okay. Maybe it is. It came in patch set. We applied patch set, so it looks it came in.
Okay, okay,
Um, so in production, we don't have this feature. Okay, but we applied patch set, which is latest. So it looks like it came in. We have to see.
okay, fine, fine. Yeah.
As of with old patch set, it is not there. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. So just to, we'll stick to that. It is not there.
yes.
Okay. That's what, because the version also it will be the older version. So we'll stick not there. Yeah.
No, actually, we here also, I mean, like we are dealing with 14.5 only. The same version is what I use. So, I mean, Prasad is also using.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Yeah, we will discuss that. Okay.
Yeah. So once the transaction is released from the exception queue or any other queue, then the status can be either again cancelled, or it can be hash and processed. Okay. Once the transaction is processed, there is one more action that is required, which is handing off the accounting from OBP to FCC. Okay. Because OBP is just a payment system. It's not the final system which determines the general ledger balances and the accounting, which, for example, you see your account statement, it is in FlexCube. I'm just saying an example that your core banking system can be anything, but I'm just giving you an example considering it is OBP and FlexCube. So if the transaction is processed, then OBP have to hand off the accounting from OBP to FCC, and FCC have to run the accounting and then process the accounting into FCC system. That is the fair. That is where your account statement, general ledger balances, and balance sheets come from. Okay. So there is a job which is called fast accounting, ACDAHOFF, which is called fast accounting job. So the once the OBP books the transaction and it releases from accounting queue, the data will be available in PMTB accounting entries. Okay. From here, it goes to a fast accounting tables, which is ACTB entries handoff, which is which is again, which is a flex cube table, which this is OBP table. PMTB accounting entries is OBP table. The one I am saying is FCC table. Maybe I can show you one transaction example when we see the database. Okay. And then if a transaction have message involved, it will be stored here and will be handed off to respective queues. For example, here, if you are initiating a cross-border payment, it will go and sit in the message table. The message will be generated and will be with message status as generated in this table. And there is a EMS job which picks out EMS out job which picks out the message and hands it off to Swift network. Okay. Okay. I'll, as said,
Prasad, you are saying FCC, like FCC means like it's FCUBS, right? FCU
FlexCube,
corporates.
FCUBS, yeah, FCUBS.
yes.
So
So maybe I'll stick to FlexCube in upcoming X.
Or you can say FCUBS. That is
Okay.
better.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So cross-border payment, this PXD OTONL, which is for MT. PSD OCBCT is MX. Okay. If you are using MT, you will be using this screen. If you are using MX, you will be using this screen. Okay. And the flow is like this. It will come in. You will initiate the transaction from these screens, and it will go to view screen. And similarly, like the ones you are seeing here, the queues and this flow is same for all type of payments. Only the screen's inputs change like this, but it's whether it can be outgoing, whether it can be incoming, all go through this flow. The queues and the transaction status and the accounting, the other things for all type of payments, this flow is same. Only your inputs will be from different screens like this. For book transfer here, for cross border in this screen. Okay. And coming to incoming, there is a job called EMS in. There will be a Swift network in your bank installed where it will push the messages to EMS queue. Like there will be a connection between your Flex Cube and then Swift network. The Swift network, whenever there is a incoming message, it will push to OBP. I mean, it will push to OBP in our case, and then there is a job which is called EMS in, and then it will populate the data into this table PMTB message daily message in, and from here it reads the data from the incoming message and books the transaction in browser. So actually what we are doing, let me explain. We don't want any Swift incoming messages to be directly processed because there is a requirement in our bank that the exchange rate should be validated before the transaction is booked for Swift. So we hold it in non-STPQ. There is a rule we maintain for incoming Swift network to always go and sit in non-STPQ, and back office user will release the transaction from the network non-STPQ, and the transaction will reach the final status. Okay.
But this one is also this STP, or whether it has to go to STP, whether it has to go to authorization limit queue,
Yeah.
or as he mentioned, like whether it has to go to ECA, all that is configurable only.
Yeah.
But usually ECA, it is must for like, so whenever it is a customer debit, then obviously they will be doing a ECA queue and then they will call the accounting.
Yes.
So if the bank doesn't want the exchange rate to be, as you mentioned, like the exchange rate do not to be verified, so we need not to maintain this moving the transaction to the STPQ, and you can move forward. Or if the bank wants that to happen, in that case we will configure it in such a way that it moves to the STPQ, and someone manually they have to do, or job by the job. I think by job also you can release it. Am I right, Prasad? Or it has to be manual only from queues, STP exception queue?
No. For non-STPQ, it must be always back office. For warehouse
Okay.
queue and network cutoff queue, it can be job.
Okay. Okay. Fine.
For non-STP, it is always manual.
So manually, somebody has to release the queue so that it moves to the next flow in the transaction booking.
Yes, correct. Okay. So let's take one example. and see how the queue processing is done. One more thing, in upcoming release, I think there won't be any ECA EAC queue, meaning um, I mean, the transaction is taking time to go through all these queues. So to make it work like fund transfer module, there is going to be some release, which is called the ECA EAC merger. It's a parameter. You can enable it, and all the checks that are done in ECAQ and EACQ will be done in accounting. When you pass the accounting queue, right, when it goes to accounting queue, all this will happen in accounting queue. So the ECA EACQ transaction won't go to those queues, but it will directly go to accounting, and everything will happen in accounting queue. If
The
anything
approach,
fails,
the approach why initially when the OBPM was designed, like why this ECA and the accounting was prepared as a two different thing, it is to make the transaction quicker for the user. So what it happens is while booking a transaction in the payments, it has to call the FCUBS for booking a transaction accounting and then validating the account and booking a transaction accounting entries. So in this case, like what they do is like they just put this as a multiple step process where they call the ECAQ. It will just do the amount block. It will not try to put an accounting entry where accounting entry might take some time to process. That is the reason they have skipped that they have splitted that as a two different process. First step, it will do the amount block, which means like the amount is blocked. The customer cannot utilize that fund anymore. So, and after that, like once the amount is blocked, they will be calling for accounting in a separate way, like separately, where once the amount blocked itself, the customer will be notified via message that a transaction is successful. Since we have the FCUBS has blocked the amount and the payment also has received the success message, and in parallelly like separately in asynchronous method they will call the accounting to be booked in the FCUBS. But there are a lot of complaints, like what is happening is the amount block is successful, but when doing an accounting, that is where they are facing some other issue and the accounting has not happened, which means that what is happening is the customer has been, it will looks like the customer is debited already, but the amount is not credited to the whoever it was supposed to be happen. So that was not happening. That is the reason it was like multiple requirements came from the bank, and then it is in the future development. Right now it is not available, but they are developing in the Oracle kernel banking payments development team. They are developing that, but it is right now it is not available, so you don't need to worry much about that. But the current process is that it is a split process only. It will do the ECA where the amount is blocked, and then as in asynchronous method it will be called like the accounting will be called separately. But before that, since the amount is blocked and the payments has received a success message, the customer will be notified immediately in parallel to while the accounting is being request has been shared to the UBS. Parallelly, the customer will also get notified that the transaction is successful.
yeah. Uh,
Go ahead, Prasad.
yeah. So let's see one transaction. What I selected is exception queue hashes, transaction status processed. Let's take one example, and let's see how the queues work. Okay, here there for all the OBP screens there is a tab called View Queue Action. Let's see how it works. So when you click on View Queue Action, it will show you what is the request, what is the response, and which queue. So that queue, which are all queues it went through. So those details will be available. Slow actually. As you can see, this is the view queue action log. Okay. The first one is ECA was initiated. You can see the request message. Maybe we deleted it, so it's not there. Normally you will have the request message here, and there will be a response message as well. I'll take some latest transaction. Let's take here. Okay. So, okay, this one is a transaction which went to non-STP queue. First, it went to non-STP queue, and the request is this. That also not available. Normally, it should be there. I'm not sure why we are not able to fetch this. Okay, maybe I'll show in the backend. So this is
Okay,
like
so this is the flow of the transaction has happened. Like initially, it went to the non-STP queue. That is the initial initiation, and then modification is where
yeah.
it is approved, right?
So by maker and checker, you see here there is a maker and checker who did the modification or the release from non-STP queue, and then it went to ECA queue. Which see whatever the actions which maker ID available as system are all done by system. Whatever available as user ID, it
It is
is some
automatic.
actions.
It is automatic. The system moves automatically. Whereas the user ID comes, then it means that some manually the transaction has been either modified or it has been initiated. All that is been processed.
Yeah. And here you have the queue status. Here the non-STP queue was pending initially, then it is approved. Then here ECA queue. ECA queue is done by system, right? So it is pending
So
initially. When the
each
response
transaction
comes,
is
it's
being splitted here and it has been shown as twice, like one as initiation, the other one as authorized. So that is the reason you have two different entries. And the first entry is like when it is initiated, it is coming as pending. And in the second entry, if you see, it is being shown as authorized.
yeah, which is called action is response received. So for that, it is that queue is approved basically. Now the thing is EAC, similarly EAC is requested and approved. And finally, if you see the accounting, why the maker ID and checker ID is like this? Because the accounting which goes to FlexCube should have proper audit, right? The transaction is booked, modified by this user and authorized by this user, right? So it can't be system. So that's why the maker ID here, even though the system does this accounting process, the maker ID and checker ID is actual user who modified and authorized the transaction. Because it's audit, the audit clearly says the accounting whoever posted it should log their particular maker ID and checker ID. In all the banks, the audit will be very strict. So the
But
maker
for the
who
amount block, it is not, it can be shown as a system itself. But where the main thing is related to the accounting, where we expect the who was the initiator, the maker, and the checker to be captured in the accounting screen.
yes. So as said, for this transaction, there are multiple steps, right? As Thambi said, when ECA check happens, it blocks the amount. And then when accounting queue releases the transaction from accounting queue, the block will be released and accounting will be passed. Okay. So I'll show how the amount is blocked and how the transactions are in queue in the database. Yes, yes. Yes. No, no, you can't. You can define what is the, I mean, your server can be anywhere, okay, but you can define a parameter. I'll show the parameter where you can define the country's time zone. Okay. Maybe at a WebLogic level or somewhere you can do that, but the net, I mean, the parameter, I think you can set the time zone specifically for a country. That is possible. Um, okay, let us go through this transaction which we saw there. So the table that holds the data for the queue action is this table, PQ to be queue action log. So whenever it goes to any queue, along with the TX and ref number, there is a queue ref number also. Okay, you see here, there is a queue ref number also, along with the TX and ref number. If you see the each queue ref number is different because it represents what is the reference number of the queue apart from the transaction. So okay, you see here when it came to non-STP, the transfer amount is 200, but when the user modified, the transaction amount became 291 because of maybe exchange rate or something. Okay, I'll order by this. So these are all the things which we saw from screen, right? This is a queue action log which we saw from the screen. Now let's see what it did against each queue. Let's see ECA queue first. There is a request message. Okay, I put it in here. Okay, what it does is it will send a web service request to FlexCube to create the amount ECA block. It is nothing but putting the amount on hold. Whatever your transfer amount, you are holding the balance in holding that particular transfer amount from your account as unusable. You can't use this amount because you have initiated a transaction in OBP. So first step is ECA, right? It does all the checks of the account and then it blocks the amount. It sends this ECA request with for this account for this currency, block this amount. Okay. So the response what we got, let's see. Okay, you see here, FlexCube responded saying it is blocked, what is it? Successfully saved and authorized, meaning the block is placed at this particular stage. The block is placed, and the block number is this one. ECRF number is this one, and ECA block ref number is this one. Let's see the block details. Okay, here you have the ECRF number, ECA block number, and what is the requested block amount, what is the approved block amount. Approved block amount is nothing but in FlexCube, it is approved, meaning you are good to go with the transaction, something like that. That is what approved block amount means. If the outstanding block amount, I mean, when this ECAQ happened, the transaction, this table would have the data here, like the outstanding block amount would have been still there for this same amount. The outstanding block amount would have been there. Okay. Now, because it went to accounting queue, that time the block is released and the accounting is passed. Okay. So now let's go to accounting queue. Normally no, because normally your transaction amount plus charges will be your blocked amount. Okay. If you release, there is no, I mean, as of I know, there is no case where we release partially and pass the accounting. it will be fully released. Okay. So this is accounting entry queue, right? So what it does in accounting queue, there is a request. Let's see what is the request. It is similarly again a SOAP request, which the service name is FCUS IF service, and the operation is create extract ECA entries, which is nothing but handing off your. This is a web service, SOAP web service, which is available in FlexCube, which acts as an interface for other systems to pass the accounting into FlexCube. Okay. So the accounting entry details are below, which will have the maker ID who modified the transaction from non-STPQ, and then the checker ID of the transaction. And ACK entry details is nothing but each leg. This is, you see, CR leg, which means credit leg. Credit leg, they are CR indicator C. What is the account number that got credited is this one. Let's see what is it in the screen. So in the screen, this is 2025 is the credit account. So 2025 you see here, the credit account, the amount, the transaction code, everything is built here. And then the debit leg. Debit leg is this one, which is a AED account with amount with account number 0011, right? 0011 is a debit account. The amount, everything like transaction code, LCY amount, what is the currency of the leg we are passing, and the value date of the transaction. These details, okay. These details are sent to push to FlexCube, and FlexCube will respond with some message. For example, if it failed in the accounting, it will respond saying, "I'm not able to process the accounting," and the transaction will stay in accounting queue. I will tell you a scenario where this is possible for a transaction to stay in accounting queue. Consider you are doing multiple transactions. For example, you are doing an FT, I mean, you are doing a fund transfer to some other account, which, for example, to your self account or to some other account, you are doing a transaction on your account. At the same time, there is a salary coming in to your account. So there is a clash. So when this accounting is getting triggered, there will be your account getting locked, right? So for example, the salary credit for the salary credit, your account got locked. So for due to that reason, this accounting entry cannot pass because of account lock. What will happen is the accounting will stay as rejected, but it will stay in accounting queue. In accounting queue, it will be there, and you can retry from accounting queue. I will show that. So this is the accounting queue screen, right? So there will be current status as rejected, and you can retry from here. Whatever is rejected, you can select the transaction and click on retry, which means it will again try to hand off the transaction to FlexCube. Okay. So here the response, let's see what it says. Successfully saved and authorized, and accounting is available here. So once this response is received, the accounting will go from this table first. In OBP, it stores the accounting. Okay, this is OBP accounting, not FlexCube accounting. It is just a handoff table which stores the which stores the accounting. Uh, this is it looks like one leg, right? But it is actually two legs in the same record. This is debit indicator is D, right? Which means this account will be debited, and there is a offset. This is a offset account, which is a bridge GL, which gets credited. Similarly, there is one more account, one more leg, which is CR leg. This account will be credited and this GL will be debited, right? This is what a netting GL. Normally in OVP, you can't directly maintain what is a credit account, what is a debit account. You have to maintain for credit leg 2 entries, debit leg 2 entries. That is where this bridge GL comes in. But normally when you see the accounting in FlexCube, this will be netted. I will show you. Before that, first the accounting comes here, right, in PMTV accounting entries. Then it goes to FlexCube fast accounting, which is ACTB entries handoff. Okay, it came here, right? You see here, there is no trace of the bridge yield because it is netted. Here we have only one credit and one debit. Okay, which is actual account debit and actual account credit. The bridge yield knocked off because it won't make sense even we pass it. Okay, so in the parameter there is an option to net the accounting entries and it got netted. Okay, so this it comes here, and as shown in this presentation, there is a job called ACDAHOF, which picks up from this table ACTB entries handoff and puts into FlexCube accounting. Okay, these are the two entries it handed off. The rest are psycho entries you can ignore, which is internal entry. You need not worry about it. So it came in finally to FlexCube accounting. So when it comes here, the amount block is released and actual accounting entries are passed. Okay, the transaction ends here. And yeah, so the messages for book transfer there won't be any messages, so this tab is useless for book transfer. But if you see cross border, this is cross border MX transaction for outgoing. So let's take any one processed. You see the inputs are different between book transfer and cross border. There in book transfer, the inputs are debit account and credit account and what is the transfer amount. But for cross border, there are multiple things required like UETR. This is system generated though. The UETR and all are system generated, and you see the transfer currency, transfer amount, and you need to give your debit account and credit account. Credit account here, if you see, it's a Nostro account. It's not actual customer account, not real customer account, because the customer belong to some other bank in some other country. So the credit account will be your Nostro account, which is this bank's account, ASB, BNZ. So this is the ultimate beneficiary. Creditor details you input, right? This is the ultimate beneficiary. This is the name of the creditor name, and then the credit account belongs to ANZ Bank. Okay, New Zealand, ANZ Bank, New Zealand, and it gets credited. The transaction will get route to this bank Swift code, and then the beneficiary bank, which is ANZ, will process the payment to this account by by debiting the mirror of this account, which is here. It is creditor, right? In our bank it is credited. In ANZ bank, this Nostro account will be debited and this beneficiary will be credited. Okay, and the processing details will store the transaction status and exception queue. Similarly, what we saw in book transfer, and similarly you have view queue button and other details. And normally you will input remittance information with your remarks, and other things remain same, like view queue action remains same, similar to book transfer. UDF same, and you can look into accounting entries from here. What is accounting entries past, and this status, handoff status is there, right? If it is success, means the accounting entries are handed off to FlexCube successfully. If it is marked as rejected, it means there is some issue in the accounting handoff from OBP to FlexCube. That needs to be handled manually via releasing it from the accounting queue. And we'll go to messages. This is the message normally will be handed off to Swift, and Swift will send to the beneficiary bank, which is where the ultimate account belong to. It's taking time. Okay, you see here, this is a customer transfer. Swift message is 103. Its equivalent in ISO is pack 008 001 08. This is nothing but message type, and these are version and subversion, which is defined by Swift. Normally, they may change in future, for example, as 09, and OBP should adapt it. Direction is out, message status is handed off, meaning the message is sent to Swift already, Swift network already. For Swift MX, the media here will be Fin Plus. The receive, I mean, this is common. This is common across all banks which uses OBPM. For MX, the media will always be Fin Plus. For MT, it will be Swift. For MX, it will be Fin Plus. Media will be Fin Plus. And the receiver is as this is a bank which will receive this message. If you see the message, this is the format. Let's take it. Place here. Let's go through the message. It is nothing but it will have all the details in this format, pack 008 format, ISO format. And you can go through the format, which is I'll ping in Teams. It is called ISO 222. You can just Google it. You will get all the formats. It's openly available, and these are all actually Swift defined header parameters which are required to be sent. And if you see the message ID, then the instructed amount, and you will have from where the message is sent and where the message is received. This is the receiving bank. Instructed agent is this bank where the message will be routed, and you will find the debit account and the debitor agent and the creditor agent and the creditor detail, creditor account and the creditor detail, and the remittance information. Remittance information is nothing but your kind of remarks. Okay. This will be sent to the beneficiary bank, and the beneficiary bank will process the credit to the customer of belonging to that bank. This account, basically. The flow of payment is this, and if you're okay, we can go to the maintenances, how we do. But I will show you from scratch how to create a network source and accounting template, those kind of details.
You can share this flow. Fine.
Yeah, I shared it in WhatsApp group already, but yeah, I will try to share it again.
I'll share it, JP.
Sorry. No. It's for us
It is a
actually.
custom table. It is a custom table. Actually, it is pbvw underscore out txn. pbvw underscore txn. Just it. That is a
Problem
kernel
is,
table.
yeah, you won't be able to query from database because they have put some global dot user ID, global dot roles and all.
Yeah,
So we
all
removed
these
all those.
view, all these view, if you see like the query where condition, branch code or something, when they are putting, they will be putting global dot user ID, global dot branch, like that. And so when you are trying to query from the view directly, pxvw underscore out underscore transaction, you will not get the response. So it has been custom. So he has created that as a custom, and for that he is showing. But it will not be available other places. So always it will be like pxvw underscore out transaction or pxvw underscore in underscore transaction. That is for incoming and out for outgoing.
So
Prasad,
if you
just
have
hold on.
any,
Yeah. Prasad, just hold on. I'll just connect my charger. You can proceed with it. Just...